Supreme Court blocks Texas from enforcing controversial immigration law for now. It is an indefinite block. The Supreme Court basically just said, you cannot enforce immigration law. Have a nice day. That's it. There's no date. We don't know what's going on. And it is, in all likelihood, Texas will defy this and just keep doing exactly what they're doing, which opens up a whole other can of worms for what happens to this country when people realize the Supreme Court has no enforcement authority. How does the Supreme Court enforce anything? I remember when Texas v. Pennsylvania happened, and I was talking to some lawyer friends as to why the Supreme Court would not take up this massively important case over the constitutionality of the elections held by various states. And they said the Supreme Court historically doesn't try to rule too heavily on very, very contentious issues because they realize they have no enforcement capabilities. And if they try to pass a ruling on something very, very heated that people are willing to defy, and people realize the Supreme Court has no enforcement capabilities, then the Supreme Court becomes vestigial.
Right, null and void. And then people will go, what do we have it for? Great point.
Well, right now, the Supreme Court, if they come out and they say you can't do this, and Texas says we can do whatever we want.
I haven't seen Texas pull down the barbed wire or relieve control of that park they took over, right, near Del Rio a month or two ago. So I would say they're probably still defying it by all accounts. Yeah, I haven't seen them change any course.
This is really appealing.
And good for Abbott. Now, I will give him harsh criticism because I don't know what the hell took him so long. I mean, the invasion's been happening for 3 years and a month, and you just started locking it down in the last 6 months. So I don't know what took them so long. And then all that happened is the cartels and the NGOs that are working with all of these illegals just switched. Okay, Texas is locked off. We'll go to New Mexico. It's liberal. That governor's not going to stop it. She's a nut job. We'll go to Arizona. Same with Katie. Or we'll go to Cali because look at Newsom. And so that's where all the immigration now, the criminal invasion has taken place. They just moved to blue states where we're just allowing it. I live in San Diego. And you should see in the last 3 to 4 months since Abbott shut Texas down, the flooding in San Diego. We didn't see it for the last 2 years, but in the last few months, it's insane. Our airport, I just flew here to see you guys. Airport lined with illegals covered in little silver blankets we're giving them with a little envelope with God knows what in we're giving them, right? Money, cell phones, whatever. And guess what? These weren't women and children. These were all men. Every single one of them I saw were men. And they didn't look like they were downtrodden and came here. Like some of them had on some nice clothes, nice shoes. What I'm like, you're fleeing some horrible country, right? You're an asylum seeker. No, the number of asylum seekers out of this 10 million that have come in is probably less than 10%. These people are not asylum seekers.
Well, all they have to do is say that they have to just claim that they're seeking asylum. Well, Chris, you were in California for a long time. Is that what, did you see similar things during the time that you were there?
Not when I was there, thankfully. But I mean, a good friend of mine is still a border reporter in Southern California. And he's been covering this issue really closely. And he's down at the border every other week. And yeah, it's really bad. And it has seemed to be like a rerouting pattern.
It is.
Since Texas has sort of, clamped down. And, seeing this is like, I really hope it's really appealing to the anarchist in me when Texas kind of defies this sort of stuff. And I imagine that Abbott's going to have the same response to this. I mean, they're just going to shrug and say, oh, well, there's 9 lawyers in D.C. running their mouth. So what?
Yeah,
that's essentially all it is.
Well, when you look at the process that Biden regime set up, they created an app, right? It takes them less than 35 or 45 minutes to fill out the app. And then they can walk to our border, turn themselves in. They get less than a 15-minute conversation with a Border Patrol agent, and they're released into this country. Now think about that. If you're coming from where we know, because we've heard it directly from their mouths, where they've emptied Venezuela, Nicaragua, all these third world countries have let out jails, insane asylums, whatever, those folks know if I just fill out that app, and I hop on the train and go up to Tijuana and walk across in California and say I'm an asylum seeker and show them I filled out the app, they let me in the country. They're seeing this. And the NGOs are working hand in hand with them. You've seen the reporting O'Keefe's done. Laura Loomer was down in the Darien Gap in Panama. The NGOs are down in those other countries, working with those governments, working with our government, and telling them to come in. And then finally, I reported this 3 years ago on my show, and people said I was a lying asshole. And I'm like, I've got pictures from Teterboro, Jersey, different airports, showing the unmarked white planes and buses, bringing them, flying them in. And now we learned, a month ago? Oh yeah, they've flown in at least 325,000, which means they've probably flown in 1 million. So we're flying them in. They're not even doing the walk anymore or the train ride. The Biden regime's literally bringing in illegals and you're all paying for it. Like, that is insane to me. This is not America. anymore. If I'm not trying to say this to gaslight people or get more clicks and likes or follows, because I don't give a shit. If we don't right this ship come November, we have 8 months to right this ship, or America as we know it and as I have known it and I served it is gone. And I think, Tim, you would agree, right?
Absolutely.
It's gone. This is not trying to scare people. Vote for Trump because I like the man. I don't agree with everything the man says or he's done. I'm not in a cult.
While Joe Biden is out campaigning, while Kamala Harris is out campaigning, Democrats are using lawfare to tie Trump up in court.
Yes.
And maybe Trump wins. Everyone thinks they're not going to let him win. He's going to get convicted. Who knows? At the very least, the process is the punishment. Trump is unable to campaign as often as he should be because they have him in court constantly, filing. I was listening to AP News and they mentioned Joe Biden brought in a record haul of $53 million. And while that surpasses, while Donald Trump had a lot more money on hand, unfortunately, he's had to use it for his legal fees.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
This
in our
is unprecedented. If this is allowed to stand, if the Democrats end up winning again, then we are basically going to operate like North Korea.
I agree. I mean, look, you can't be a free, independent media agency today and speak truth unless you're on podcasts, different social media platforms. But as far as being a network and try to speak truth like we've been doing at OAN, they don't allow you to do it. Besides the 2 lawsuits we're facing from Dominion and Smartmatic, let's not forget that they used that NewsGuard ESG rating. You guys talked about that on the show before, the little pyramid, right? They've got OAN and other networks up there with like Nazis at the top of the pyramid. They've scared away a huge portion of our advertisers who say, well, we can't do business with you. You guys are the purveyors of misinformation, according to NewsGuard, which, oh, by the way, the government pays NewsGuard. You all know that, right? And so we're just like Trump. They're trying to bleed us dry until we go off the air. They're trying to bleed Trump dry so he will stop running. And something I wish more people would talk about that know the man, and I don't know, Chris, Hannah, Tim, if you ever met him, but in the last 3 years, I've done 6 interviews. I've spent time with him at Bedminster, at Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower, when the cameras were off, when the microphones were not on. And I can tell you somebody that knows him, that frequently will text or call and talk to the man, Donald J. Trump, not the president, not the figure, not the one they demonize every damn day, the guy, okay? The guy that eats a Big Mac and drinks Diet Coke and says the F word. And he loves his country. He's trying to do what's right. And his family is getting screwed for it. His business, as you just said, Tim, he can't afford to pay that ridiculous bond. And come on. What he did, the banks showed up and testified and said, he paid us back with interest. We want to keep doing business with Trump. Why are we claiming that he did something illegal? Every real estate developer out there does exactly what he did. You want to show your property in the best light, get the highest value.
Revolt. They're telling Kathy Hochul they're going to pull out, and she's like, no, everything's fine. Just don't worry.
Better. See, that's what we got to get people with more balls.
Kevin O'Leary went on several shows for like 2 weeks talking about how he's pulled out his investments from New York, and they're going to start looking to other states, including West Virginia. New York is not a safe place to operate. If you have a business, and your business in any way is national, or I'll put it this way. If you don't need to operate at your headquarters in New York, you absolutely should not operate your headquarters in New York, because do you want to buy a lottery ticket where they can come and just seize all your assets? So I'll put it this way. The likelihood that they get you, literally you listening right now, it's slim. Why? Well, because there's a ton of Trump supporters in New York, but they're coming for Trump, and they're going to come for people who are defending Trump. It's going to be subtle too. I don't think they'll go after a regular old Trump supporter and say something like, "Oh, you committed fraud, we're taking your property." I think they're going to do something like, "Oh, we beat your taxes and you actually owe a little bit more. You know what? You owe a little bit more than that." They're going to nickel and dime you. They're going to attack you.
Right.
Why take the chance?
More red tape.
If you don't need to be in New York, you shouldn't be.
Well, you see, Kevin O'Leary was approaching this from very apolitical lens. I mean, what he said was, this is not about Trump. This is a New York problem now, because this sets precedent. I thought that was a really shrewd observation.
Yeah, and more people have stepped up. I just wish more would. But then just speaking out isn't enough. I mean, where do you hit these people so they will pay attention? Green doesn't know left or right, blue or red. Money.
Right.
You got to hit them in the pocketbook. That's the only way you're going to make these people change. And so unless you get the Kevin O'Leary's and the other billionaires that do business in New York to get the hell out of there, it's not going to send that direct message to Hochul and the rest of them.
But I don't think you need to send a message. The message has been sent by Hochul, by Letitia James.
Yeah, good point.
When Kevin O'Leary goes on TV and says, we are getting out of here, he's just the public-facing guy. I guarantee as soon as that ruling came down, those banks that said we like Trump and want to work with him immediately went to their lawyers and their insurance companies and said, what do we have to do now? And they probably started setting up a whole bunch of contingencies and trusts. They're thinking now, okay, what if they come for us next? And so they're setting up those emergency plans. I'm also willing to bet, I think it's absolutely obvious, Kevin O'Leary is not the only real estate developer to say, we're leaving New York. I'm willing to bet tons of developers silently just said, let's start shifting our focus somewhere else. And it's subtle and it's simple. You've got a regional or national development firm, and they say, how many projects were we looking at for New York? 3 or 4? Is there somewhere else we could allocate our resources and just, it's a high risk state? And say, yeah, Pennsylvania's got some opportunity. Okay, let's shift there. We'll keep New York on the back burner, but we'll see. The risk is too high right now. How many people want to cut a deal with any one of these lenders in New York when the government could just come and seize everything you own? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.